Hey everybody, welcome back to GR Research, where today I'm going to introduce something to you completely new. I have for you a new product that we're going to introduce today. This is something I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a while, and I've decided to produce this and release it for several reasons. And for now we're calling it the Desktop Mini, because it's kind of it's a little speaker. It's designed for the desktop, or it can be used in other applications, but it's a small sealed box design designed to be very accurate and sound extremely good for no money. And I mean for very little. I mean we're doing a bare bones kit here that is crazy amount for just this is silly. But what I'm doing is I'm throwing it out there kind of as a loss leader. Reason being is I want to introduce a lot of our newer viewers and guys who have never done DIY before. I want to give those guys the opportunity to do something very easy, very affordable, and get over-the-top results that can compete with a lot of the speakers out there up to the $1,000 price range and even above that in some cases. This will do it, and I'm going to try to launch this thing for $199. $199 for the complete kit and a flat pack. And the reason I'm introducing it with the flat pack is, as you can see, the drivers are truncated. In other words, the frames are cut top and bottom, and there's good reason for this. When you truncate the edges like that, you can actually get the acoustic centers closer together, which improves the off-axis response and the vertical off-axis. You're improving the time arrival aspect because you're getting these really close to one another. So that's the reason we're throwing in the flat pack. As you can see, the front baffle on these things are all CNC cut. All you have to do is just glue the boxes together, run a router over the outside edges like this one here, and round the edges. This is an assembled pair, and we may even do an offer of, for an extra money you can get the boxes already assembled to make it even easier for you if you don't want to do that. But we want to throw it out there, like I said, bring new people into the hobby and let you guys see how easy it is to do this. Also, the crossover parts are very simple in this. It did not require a lot of parts, so it's going to be very simple to put together. The tweeter circuit only has 3 parts. The woofer circuit only has 3 parts. It's just a second order filter basically on both drivers, because both are behaved really well and don't require a lot of correction. The drivers themselves, this is a small little aluminum dome tweeter, and it sounds really good for an aluminum dome. It does not have the typical metallic sound I get from a lot of different metal dome drivers. Same with this little woofer here. Small voice coil, lightweight, overbuilt. You can see there's a pretty big motor structure on this thing. And then there's a bucking magnet on there that shields it. Same with the tweeter. These are fully shielded, so if you want to stick this next to some old computer monitors, that is not a problem. Or an old TV, whatever. It won't cause any problems because it is shielded. So yeah, overbuilt motor structure on this little jewel. It is an aluminum cone, and I'm not a big fan of aluminum cones, but some of them are not bad, and this is one of them. This thing is well controlled. It doesn't have a bunch of ringing. It measures extremely smooth, and it has a nice sound to it, especially for the fact that we're not having to do a bunch of correction. We have very few parts in the signal path on this thing. So we're going to do a couple of options that you can add to this thing to upgrade it. One is for $8, you're going to have the option of throwing in a little Gen 2 bypass cap in the tweeter circuit. Now, what does that little bypass cap do? Let's talk about this for a second. I get a lot of guys asking me often, what do those bypass caps do? Because we offer MyFlex bypass caps, which are copper foil bypass caps in some of our top models, and even in the X series model, they become very popular. What does that bypass cap do, and why are we using it? Think of every capacitor out there, and I've got 3 different ones here, different sizes, are really energy storage devices. A capacitor is going to take an incoming signal. It's going to receive that signal, hold it, and then discharge it, kind of like that. But they're at different rates. There's different discharge rates for different capacitors, and some of them are very slow, some of them are very fast. Electrolytics, for instance, are very slow in how they charge and discharge, so that tends to smear the signal, so you hear a smearing effect. These are the ERSI poly caps. They're very much like a lot of the polypropylene caps out there. They're a faster discharging cap. And as you get into some of the more exotic caps, some of those are really fast in the way they discharge, which makes them sound very clean. Now, the smaller the cap, the faster it discharges. Simple as that. It's not going to store much energy. You get into this big 56 microfarad value, and the discharge rate is going to be a lot slower. You get into this 100 microfarad value here, discharge rate slower still. So often when we go to some of these bigger values, even in the woofer circuit, we'll drop a little bypass cap on there to basically discharge that stored energy in the bigger cap. So what we're doing is we're making it faster and cleaner in a lower cost way. Instead of spending money on a Sonic cap or a higher quality cap of some kind that's going to have a faster discharge rate, we're cheating. We're taking the little small cap that is a 0.1 microfarad and we'll bypass it. And what I mean by bypass it, we'll put the two caps together and we'll twist them together at both ends. So we're really not changing the value much. I mean, we're adding 0.1 microfarad to it. That's usually a whole lot less than the tolerances between all the different caps. So we're not really changing the value much. We're just improving the discharge rate. Now, when you do that, it also takes on the character of the bypass cap. So all the different bypass caps tend to have a little bit different sound. The Gen 2 Sonic cap that we use lots of, it has a very neutral sound, very clean. It doesn't color it. And the result is less smearing. The signal's in, out, instead of in, out. You get the idea. So when you hear the music played through it with the bypass cap added, we're noticing more space between notes, cleaner sound, better detail, better resolution, things like that. So it's a kind of a cheap cheat, so to speak. So for $8, we're gonna make that an option. For $50, we're gonna make it an option that you can turn that cap in the tweeter circuit to a Sonic cap, which is going to improve the clarity quite a bit. And we're going to do one other option where you can add tube connectors if you want. So between caps, tube connectors, you're in the $300 range. So we're getting up there a little more. I mean, you're adding a third again more monies to it for improvements in clarity. And all of those things are going to make a difference. But we want to throw this thing out there as cheap as possible to get you guys into this as easily as possible and get you started. So, and for a desktop situation, even in the base level form, these things are going to be great. I mean, they really are. This is 3/4 inch MDF. It's got one brace going from side to side. It's got the binding post cup cut for it. If you want it with tube connectors, we can cut it for tube connectors, or you can add the binding post and tube connectors. You can drill a hole there in the back for tube connectors and use both if you want. You can go from one to the other and hear the difference. And a box this small made out of 3/4 inch MDF, it's going to be pretty solid. I mean, there's not much there to resonate. It's just the panels aren't very big. So that's super solid. You can just line this thing completely with fiberglass insulation or polyfill. Just cover the walls and just line it in there, leave a little bit of a space behind the woofer, and that's it. I mean, you can just stuff it in there. It's a sealed box. You don't have to worry about airflow getting to the port or anything like that. Also, we're going to make stands for these things. We're going to make desktop stands that are going to be 6 to 8 inches tall, that are going to hold this thing up off the desktop, and we're going to give it a little bit of a tilt. So imagine the speakers like this on your desktop. Perfect for listening to music. It's not on the desk. It's going to be up off the desk, getting it more up to ear level where you can really listen to, really enjoy these things. And I can't wait to get all this stuff out there. I don't have a price yet on the stands, but we're going to make it to where they glue together real easily, and we'll throw that in as an option in the flat pack pages. Let's look at the measurements on these things. I want to show you guys just how good these things really are, and they really are that good. Let's start with the on-axis frequency response. On-axis frequency response on this thing is better than plus or minus a half a dB all the way across until you get to the very top. Now, if you get to the very top end, you're going to see the tweeter has an amplitude peak in one half of the top octave, like peaking at around 20 kHz. There's a peak there. And there's not much musical information up there to begin with. So that peak at that point is going to be really hard to hear. Even if you start sending sine waves through it, it's hard to hear in general above that range. A lot of people just flat out don't hear above 15 kHz. And for those of us who do, it's still not that bad because it's so high in frequency that there's no music there. It's your upper level harmonics that are there, and the fact that it's playing that high contributes to those what we call spatial cues. A lot of the things that create the space and the distance around things in your soundstage, those cues, as we call them, are right up there in those top octaves. So when they're there like that, and even when they're peaked like this, it tends to accentuate it just a little bit, but it doesn't really accentuate what you hear so much as it more exaggerates the spatial cues, so the things that are around it. So it's not going to hurt anything to have a little peak right there. It would be a problem if it was a severe resonance peak, and if it were a resonance peak, we'd see it in the spectral decay. Let's look at the spectral decays, and the peak is blown off the chart here because I moved everything up so that we could see further across the scale of how fast things decayed. In this case, fantastic. This thing just drops off cleanly. You don't see any resonances anywhere. Nice and smooth. That's what we want to see on every speaker. And we see no real long decay rate there at 20 kHz. Some of the speakers that we've measured where they have a peak up there in the top octave, you see a long decay where there's a whole bunch of ringing going up there. We don't see that here. So the amplitude peak doesn't bother me. And as you start to move off axis, that peak starts dropping off. So I'm not too concerned by that peak way up there peaking at 20 kHz when from 15 kHz and down this thing is flat as a pancake. So that all looks great. The impedance response, super smooth. Minimum impedance dip 7.8 ohms, so easy load all the way across. The horizontal off axis looks pretty good. Not perfectly balanced in the way it's dropping off. There's still a little bit of a heavierness there at 4 kHz or so where it's not dropping off, but other than that, it's really good. And if we look at the vertical off axis, it's great. Now, one of the reasons the vertical off axis is so great is the acoustic centers are so close together. When you get acoustic centers that close together, as you move up or down, you're not changing the time delay between the drivers so much. If they're spread further apart and you start moving up or down, the time differential becomes greater from one to the other and they start canceling each other out. We don't see that in these. We see a vertical off axis that looks fantastic. And if you look at the crossover response of the whole thing, they fall really cleanly into each other. There's no issues there. Let me look and see exactly where it was crossing. This is a little faded, but it looked like it was about 2,500 hertz where they cross over. So real smooth. I'm real happy with this. I can't wait to launch it. I've got custom inductors that we've made for these. They're going to ship Monday or Tuesday, so about the time you see this video, those inductors are going to be shipping to us. So the next week, we'll try to have these up on the website, have them available to where you guys can just click an order on these things. You guys are going to love them. And again, if you're new to DIY and you want to get your feet wet, this is it. This is a great one to start with, and we're here for support. You can post on Audio Circle in our forum. And there's a lot of guys there that are going to be there for you for answering questions and things like that. And I'm just really excited to get these out there. I'm going to, like I said, I'm just going to blow these out there as a loss leader. We're not trying to make a bunch of money on these. I bought a bunch of these drivers in a closeout deal that went down that used to be, these used to be AV123's drivers. So I got them at a pretty good deal, and I'm just going to pass it on and kind of use it as a promotional model. And that's it for this little episode here. Stay tuned, there is going to be more to come, and I've got another new model that I can't wait to introduce to you guys. Be sure and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the little bell notification button so you're notified of new videos that drop. And that's it for this time. See you guys in the next video.